Mickey Dickey here, and I'm giving you my weekly update on the stocks I'm looking for next week. And as you can see by the screen, it's a little bleak, and I'm not trying to be mean or testy or anything on it, but there's not a whole lot I'm looking for next week. And part of that is because of what we've seen this week. And let me explain. When we go back to last week, the week of May 2nd, what we found interesting here is that the market really just didn't really care. But as an example, Bud Light beat and it went up. Apple beat and went up. Bookings beat and went down. Square beat and went up. Royal Caribbean went up. Paramount got crushed. Look at the rest of this stuff for the week. The week has been a down week, just in general. So beat. All these individual stocks went up, even though the market's been down. All these were beat. Now, these were afters, so they actually beat but went down because of their guidance. So when you start looking at what's really happened this week, we really had a pretty good week, especially on the bigger stocks. Even Apple came in today and was better than expected. Which the real interesting one was what happened on Wednesday. We talked about this in what I was looking at for last week, which was what was going to happen with Powell. And Powell obviously came in, and some people are calling what he said hawkish. What I got out of it was that I don't think he knows what's going to happen going forward. I think I know what he would like to happen. I think he'd like the fact that we can stop raising, and I don't think he's going to say it. So I think some people had some notion that maybe he was going to come out and say something more than he did say, which he didn't. And the market had held up pretty much most of the day and then sold off afterwards. So what I'm looking more for next week is how does all this play out? And the reason I say that is in lack of other information. Again, there's earnings that are coming out, but to me, nothing that's really going to move the market. These are the only ones that are potentially going to move the market at all. And one of them, PayPal on Monday, you've got KKR. And those of you who don't know what KKR is another one of those investment companies that alternative investments. They do a lot of real estate. They do a lot of lending. So it's going to be interesting to see how they perform and how the market takes what they're doing. And you got Tyson Foods, which has just been crushed, to see how that goes. And then I hinted about this last week. You got Duke Energy coming out on Tuesday based upon what happened with AEP this week. Then you've got Airbnb, which again is one of those COVID replays to see how it's doing. Oxy, because of what's going on with Berkshire and how much they've got into it. Under Armour. And then you've got Warby Parker. Now, a lot of you probably don't really care about Warby Parker because it's not a big stock. It's not a big holding stock. Again, what I'm looking for here is this is one of those stocks that is not profitable, but has a place in the world. Okay, so I don't expect it to go bankrupt or anything, but I'm curious to see how the market responds to its last quarter. Example, DraftKings just reported this huge numbers. Even though it's not profitable, it's continuing to do what it was doing before. It's just continued to move on, which has been the baffling thing for me, that you can reset these values all you want, but these stocks just continue to roll on because they actually have a future. So same thing with iRobot and GoPro. So these are more, I'm interested to see how the market responds to them more than anything. Wednesday, you've got Disney, then you've got Toyota Motor Company, and Thursday you've got Tapestry. Friday, I don't have anything. So again, there's not a lot that's going to come out, I think, to move the market. And because of that, I'm interested to see how the stocks from the last 2 weeks perform. Because a lot of them were muted in not this week, but the week before. And this week until Apple and Wednesday when the Fed reported. So it's going to be interesting to see how these level off. Because some of them did well. It went up a little bit, but the market didn't do great, so they didn't do well. So sometimes you'll get this lag effect with some of these stocks that did well but didn't necessarily go up. Or on the other side of it, if they did poorly and went up and didn't go down. Again, as I look at these numbers, I'm more interested to see what's going to happen with Google and Microsoft and Amazon that reported the week before. And some of these other stocks that, because the market in and of itself was down, did not get the uptick that I expected them to get because they did what they were supposed to do. Anyway, that's just a general idea where I'm going with this and what I'm looking for next week. And again, these are not stocks that I'm suggesting that you buy or sell. These are the stocks that I'm looking for trends to invest my clients' money. And I hope that gives you some general idea of what I'm looking at going forward. The other issue that we have is CPI, which is coming out on the 10th. And as we've talked about before on this, with CPI coming down 1% from February to March, when we get the April print, the gas prices are down 12% year over year, which isn't the 18 that it was from February to March, but it's still a decent decline. So the fact that we went down 1 full percentage point with gas prices being down 18, the fact that they're down 12 year over year, I'm guessing we're going to see somewhere in around the 0.5% range on a decrease, which, interesting enough, is going to put us at 4.5%. Now, again, is it where we want to be? Again, it depends on who you ask. As those of you who've seen my other videos, if the average is 3.8%, and that is the historical norm for the United States, and we're at 4.5%, it's not what everyone's making it out to be. I continue to hear everybody say how horrible inflation is, how horrible inflation is. And if it weren't coming down significantly, I might be more inclined, or if it was climbing, I might be. But again, look at the gas prices for the month of May so far. Oil continues to go down. And if oil continues to go down, and the actual price of Brent crude and all that, we're probably looking at gas prices being lower this month than they were in April. And the gas prices from last year actually went up from April to May. And so if this year they go down, which it appears to be, we're probably looking at more of a 15 or 18% reduction in gas prices year over year, which means we should get at least another 0.5% reduction in May. Now, again, that's going to be reported in June. And then June's the big month, where we were at over $5 a gallon and the 9.1 inflation number. So we should see at least another 0.5%, if not more, in June. August, the same thing. We should have at least another 0.5% reduction. Now, I'm saying at least. I think you're probably going to get more in each of these. But let's just assume we get a 0.5% in each one of these months, which, barring something we're not seeing, I don't see a number or reason why we wouldn't hit those numbers. But if we're at 5% right now, and for April, May, June, July, you've got 4 months in a row where we should be at least a 0.5% reduction. My math puts that at 2%. That gets us down to 3. And I'm guessing probably under 3. So if we're really looking at being under 3% by, would be the August print, or the July print that comes out in August, I don't know that I'm having a problem going forward here, because the numbers just seem to be in the right direction. And if we're under 3%, have we not, again, not that we're completely done, we're where we need to be. We're right on target. So I'm just not seeing what everybody else is seeing, and maybe I'm missing something. Now, the part of it I might be missing, and again, this is the inflation part of this, okay? Because stocks have been beaten down, because inflation, because with raising rates and all that good stuff, that's why I think that the market should have the opportunity to go up if inflation's under control. It doesn't seem to be working that way. No one seems to be looking at it. All they seem to be looking at is the banking scenario. And not that we don't have a banking problem, because again, that's another issue for next week. Lack of having earnings, other things are going to come to the forefront. The banking debacle is going to be an issue. Inflation is going to be an issue. So assuming those are positive and what we want it to be, this should be a good thing. Now, again, the banking problem is another issue. And I want to bring this up here, because again, we're going to watch this going forward. There are two parts to this. The one is the individual banks and how, if they end up becoming an issue. The second is the overall market, the financial market. When we start looking at the overall financial market and we start saying, okay, I keep hearing people say that what's happening in the market is that, not just these individual banks, but in general, that all the banks are only paying so much in savings and checking accounts. They're right. And they're saying that as people take deposits from the banks in their checking and savings and move them into CDs and treasuries and money markets that are paying 5%, that's going to become a problem. True, to some extent. There is only so much that can be moved to those things. And it's not like everybody can take everything. We need checking accounts because we need to write checks out of them or use them to pay bills, okay? There's a reason they're in there. So they're not going to be able to take the money that's being circulated and used in those accounts and move them into savings accounts paying 5% or T-bills or CDs or whatever. So whether they're in the individual banks, which that's the one part of this, if PacWest and these other banks become a problem, again, it's not systemic to the part that it's going to hurt everything else. They're just literally moving it from PacWest to another bank, maybe JP or Wells or wherever it is. So that another bank may go down because people are pulling money out of it, but they have to put it somewhere. And again, some of these banks may have an issue because people are taking some of their savings accounts and moving them into CDs and treasury bills and whatever. So even though they're still housed at the bank, they're not counted as a savings account, so it's not part of the whole system. So they see this as being a bigger issue, and it is to an extent. I don't think it's going to cause the damage that everybody thinks it's going to cause. And I'm even hearing people say that they think the Fed's going to have to start lowering rates in July. Wow. I don't know that I see that. I do think that they're done raising. I think unless something we don't see comes up, I don't see how they can even suggest that they should raise. And I would really question. I've questioned the last several that I don't think so, but I didn't think it mattered. I do think it will matter if they do another one. And again, I can't even defend it from that side. Next week, I think, is really going to be driven by things that aren't really market themselves. I don't think the stocks are going to do it. This week was interesting because I thought the stocks would run the market, and they've mainly done what I thought they were going to do, which is do better. We're almost at 80% of the stocks reporting are doing better than we expected on sales, profit, and forecasting. So it's a far better quarter than anyone ever expected, and we're really not seeing anything go on with that. April was not a great month, wasn't a horrible one, but it sure wasn't as good as what the numbers were. Now, granted, that's only half the month when we had earnings reporting. But May's not starting off great as far as the whole market, and yet we're having really good returns from the stocks, which I've heard some people say well, it was a low bar, but then I hear other people say well, it was already built in. And again, let's just deal with reality. What's the market actually doing? I don't care what they thought was going to happen. Let's deal with what's going on. What's going on are the stocks are doing better than we expected, and the market's not responding to it. And a lot of them just aren't getting the returns that we thought they would get, even though they've done what they said they were going to do. So next week, I think it's going to be interesting because should start leveling off, and we'll actually see how again, you have the initial reaction on these stocks when they pop and do quick. You really know whether the stock has legs a week or two later. So we're going to start seeing whether Microsoft and Amazon and Meta actually have legs going into next week. We'll start seeing some of these stocks because, especially the ones that reported earlier in the week, whether they actually have legs going down the road. So it's going to be an interesting week. But this is what I'm looking for. These are the things I'm dealing with. If you have questions, give me comments. Otherwise, talk to your financial advisor. Make sure your portfolio is the way you want it to be. Because really all I want you to do is be able to retire when you want to retire and how you want to retire. Dickey out.